So this is sort of how we stack up in terms of productivity, one major measure of productivity nationwide. And so this isn't exactly our peer group, which I'll spend most of the time on, but did want to show here that despite being 23rd in metro area population, we're actually 7th in per capita ridership, which really shows that we're kind of competing above our weight class, if you will. If you note, most of the other cities here are some of the largest, most established older cities, many of them East Coast cities, which grew up around their rail systems actually, and so we think that's quite a strong performance. Those paying a lot of attention may notice Honolulu there. Certainly they are quite productive in their bus service. We're analyzing exactly why that may be the case, but our sense is that there is quite a lot of student use, both university and high school use there based on our research. There's also, due to there being in Hawaii relatively expensive fuel, and this is an affordable option that provides good transportation services in the area. So that's certainly something to continue to look at, but still the point is that we're really quite a leader in this area nationally, even comparing ourselves against really some much larger cities. This is where we start to really focus in on a more defined group of about 15 peers that while they range in population, have similar levels of service on bus and light rail, and so that's what we like to sort of compare ourselves against. A couple of different things to note here to orient you around the slides. At the bottom you'll see the various city names arrayed. Those are for the most part actually describing the primary transit authority in there. The former slide really looked at a full metro area. With the exception of Seattle, this is primarily one agency that is controlling the primary transit service in the area. For Seattle, we're actually combining King County Metro service with Sound Transit service, and in part that was in response to the King County Metro general manager wanting to make sure that they could at least sort of compete with us since they wanted to throw everything in the pot, and so we've obliged them there. But as you'll see, while their total ridership here is a bit bigger, in some of the areas where we normalize for size, we continue to lead. The cities at the bottom are arrayed from size, from on the left side smallest to largest on the right. And if you see the black trend line that creeps up along there, that actually using the y-axis on the right, that's the actual population of the service district that they serve. And so you can see we're among the smallest in this peer group, only 3rd in population size. And it ranges up to Houston there, approaching 3 million. So quite a large range of population, and yet you do see that, especially in comparison to most of those on the left half, the generally smaller areas, we have quite high ridership and are really competing with some much larger areas. And if we start to then normalize this on a per capita basis, per residents in the service area, you do see that in fact we exceed on that normalized basis all of the other peers quite substantially. In fact, 25% higher than Seattle in second place in this category. And that really does speak to the productivity that we see as a result of both the integrated transportation and land use planning that we've had in the region for a while, as well as the total transit system concept that we've organized our investments around. One other way of looking at this is, well, okay, you have a lot of riders, but how much service are you putting out there? Is that one of the reasons that you have such high ridership? And that's sort of both a good thing, I think, but also one to keep an eye on. You do see here that we're in fact second just behind Seattle in terms of service provision, and that reflects also our vision of a total transit system which doesn't serve simply commute trips, but really focuses on enabling people to make trips throughout the day, throughout the week. We have quite high levels of both ridership and service over the weekends, which I'll touch on in a bit, but this helps to explain that as well. Yes?
Explain the normalizing between rail and bus.
I want to make sure I understand the question.
Isn't it, but don't we do an hour on a train is different than an hour on a bus, right? For this purpose or not?
This actually is counting up revenue hours on both of these, so you may want to explain that.
Well, the only thing is, if you think about it, I mean, we take generally about 300 people on a two-car train, about 45 on a bus, and so an hour of service could be moving a lot more people on the train side. If you think about it, against Seattle, they've only just this last July introduced their first train service, not commuter rail type, but light rail type. So some of that normalizing is a little misleading by hours of revenue service.
Right. Another way that this could be presented, which we didn't today for reasons of brevity, would be on a seat mile basis. It really sort of shows the capacity of the system to move folks. I do think the next slide will speak a bit to this, though. which is to show that at least on the revenue hour basis, people are utilizing the service that's out there. It's a little bit different point. But this does speak to both the fact that we are putting quite a lot of service out there, but also that it's being utilized at a high rate. And while we are not quite at the top of this, we're essentially tied with the other two that are at that level, being Minneapolis, St. Paul, and San Diego, essentially within 3% there. So merely, again, I think at the top of this category in terms of service utilization. And again, this productivity really does, I think, show how building the whole transit system from our web-based and mobile applications to help people understand when the bus is coming in real time and other vehicles coming in real time, to having amenities at the stops to make it comfortable to wait in our less than clement weather at times. All of those elements come together to show that we are both putting out great service and it's being utilized. One other key area where we really lead, and it does help explain our success, is in looking at weekend boardings, as I alluded to earlier. We do have quite a bit of service out there then, but also because we have consistent service through our frequent service program, where people can continue to count on those buses, those workhorse lines we use throughout the weekends as well. They really do turn to us for non-work trips as well. This has been a recent area of strong growth over the last decade, and you really do see here that we're head and shoulders above our peers in this area. It also speaks to the fact that we do have quite high choice riders. About 83%, based on our most recent surveys, have access to a car but choose not to use them. And that includes about 5% who have indicated that they in fact have given up a car because of transit service in the area. And so that, I think, is very strong, and worth noting that essentially the inverse proportion is unfortunately in many regions the case, that only about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 are choice riders, as opposed to 4 out of 5. And so finally, I just wanted to say that all of this really comes together and getting this recognition both as a region and as a transit service, and the way that those interact together. A few of the recent accolades that we've seen that you may not have heard about, but within Travel and Leisure's reports on America's Best City, America's Best Transit was called out as a major element in that. Also in ratings of our greenness, where Portland continues to come out on the top in many instances, or near the top. Transit use and transit access are continually highlighted, and the connection specifically with the Airport Max line has continued to have PDX be among the favorite business travelers in the country the last few years. And it's worth noting, any travel log that comes to Portland and describes what they see here certainly mentions the biking, but it also really mentions the transit, the easy connection from PDX right into the heart of downtown, and all of that really, I think, is a flavor of this community, and one that we're proud to be contributing to. But just wanted to keep it brief here today. Certainly we can provide more of this data if you're interested in it, but just to give you a little bit of a sense of where we stand, and we'll continue to update you as new data becomes available. Have I answered any questions?
Okay. Were you the youngest child in your family?
The only grandchild, perhaps that explains it.
No, one thing, just as Eric's, unless there were questions for Eric, I wanted to... You're going to look around who's else in the audience. I've got to be careful with this because it was meant to be able to be kept confidential. But I think just underscoring the role that we play is that Secretary Donovan was in town a few weeks ago and wanted to have a very small and private set of meeting really with key players. I think Robert Liberty was there, but Tiffany represented TriMet, and a chance to be able to really tell the story about housing, transportation, connection, and the fact that Secretary Donovan came here, wanted to be able to not have the public events, wanted to be able to learn and share. I think just again a reflection on how we are perceived as a region and as a transit system.
Yeah, it's true. He only had so much time, and they asked, well, what did he want to do with his time? He said, I want to go to Portland for a little while. So flew in here, had a brief meeting, and then I think he was going to Seattle next. But very interesting, very fun to just listen to him as well, his ideas.
And get your oar in the water a bit.
A bit.
Okay. Well, very good presentation. Thank you.